So I'll be looking over Module 4, Lesson 29, Exit Ticket. The 8th grade math teacher, Ms. Goebel, is buying an appropriate number of math tools to use throughout the school year. And so she is planning on buying 4 times as many rulers as protractors. So I was given that information, and so I thought, oh, that seems like pretty important stuff. So I wrote it down here as something that might be useful to me to solve my problem. The number of calculators Ms. Goebel is planning on buying is half the number of rulers. So again, I wrote that down as well. Half the number of rulers. If Ms. Goebel buys 63 items, how many of each item does Ms. Goebel buy? Now, the key thing here is the number of things we're asked to do, right? We're asked to use some visual diagrams and models, which can include tables. If you didn't know that, I bet you could go back and try to solve this if you were a little stuck when you solved it the first time. And then you can it also wants you to use equations with algebraic steps to solve, and then sentences expressing your final answer. So what I did was I started by making a column of the 4 items that I have. I have rulers, protractors, calculators, and totals. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit on that to check and make sure I've got it. Okay. Now what you need to remember is that there's 4 times as many rulers as protractors. That means the rulers are 4 times bigger than the calculators. That would mean if the rulers were 16, the only number that 16 is 4 times bigger than is 4. So 4 times as many rulers, 4 times as many rulers as protractors. I know that because 4 times 4 is 16. Or for example, if I did 12 rulers, this would have to be 3 protractors. Now here's the other deal. It says calculators is half the rulers. Calculators, half the rulers. So it means if I have 16 rulers, half of those would be 8. Here, rulers are 12. Half of that would be 6. Let's try another one just to make sure we've got it. So it means if I had 40 rulers, right? Calculators it has to be 4 times, or protractors, it has to be 4 times bigger than that. So that means this one would be 10, and then calculators has to be half of rulers, that would be 20. But remember the goal, and of course we could think about our totals, right? 16 and 4 on the first line is 20, so this would be 28. Or here, 12 and 3 is 15. Right, 12 and 3, 15, add 6 would be 21. And then here, 40 and 10 is 50, add 20 is 70. But again, we want to think, how can we make it so there's simply a variable we're thinking about? And usually what's easiest is if you can get from one column to another without a fraction. So like for example, if I put a variable here, I could say I get down here by taking x divided by 4, but that might be kind of hard to think about. So I might try going the other way. So I might try thinking, how do I get this way, right? How do I get from protractors to rulers? So for example, if I had, let's say the variable r representing protractors, how could I get from r over here? How do I get from 10 to 40? How do I get from 3 to 12? How do I get from 4 to 16? And for all of these, you would answer by multiplying by 4. So I would say 4r, right? Because r times 4, that's how I would write that. Well, let's think about it now. If I'm using this as my variable, right? I know that will help me get over here, right? I could think like this. 4 to 8, 3 to 6, 10 to 20. But here, I could also think, what's half of 4r, right? Because that's how we got over there. And they happen to be the same, which makes mathematical sense. Half of 4r, right? Half of 4 is 2. And if you look at that, that looks true. 4 times 2, 8. 3 times 2, 6. 10 times 2, 20. So this is 2r right here. Now in the problem, we are told that she wants to end up with 63 total items. So that means if I add these up, right, just like we did it up here, like earlier we added 40 plus 10 plus 20 to get 70. That means technically I can add 4r plus r plus 2r, and if I'm solving for r, it should equal 63 for what I'm working with. So let's add this together. 4r and r is 5. 5 and 2 is 7r. we can add those all together because they are the same variable. And that's our goal, to write them all with the one variable. And so now I got to figure out how can I get r so it's all by itself. And how do I do that? Well, I take 7r and divide it by 7. Because I know 7r divided by 7, that's the same thing as this. R times 7 divided by 7. That's old news at this point. Old news. So then I would have to do the same thing to this side if we remember our balance scale concept. And 63 divided by 7 is 9. So if that is true, that should help us figure out a lot of stuff. This tells us the number of protractors, right? So I could say if there are 63 items, that means there are, R was 9, right? So there are 9 protractors. Let's see, how many calculators would there be? 18, because there are 18 calculators. How did we get that? Because we took 2 times 9. And there are, how are we going to figure out the number of rulers? Well, R is 9, so I'm going to think, and remember for each one of these, this means 9, this means 9 times 2, this means 9 times 4, so there must be 36 rulers. And there are 36 rulers. So we've got some stuff done here. Let's go back and review and see if we've done everything we were supposed to do. So it says to visual diagrams and models, that could include a table, so we've got that, right? So I'm going to check that off. We've done that. Equations with algebraic steps shown. And again, this is something you should do no matter how you're working in life. I've got my equation with my algebraic steps shown. That counts right there. So I can check that off the list. And finally, a sentence expressing the final answer to the question. I've got that right here. Life is good. I've got all 3 parts done. Now it's your job to go to the last page of your roadmap. Go to the last page and start reflection. Start your reflection. Start your reflection. So if you are watching the video with truth and integrity, you will know what to do next. You will know how to proceed.